So today we're going to start off talking about a story, the story about how we came together as part of these two amazing businesses.
It's a love story.
It's got a good arc, some drama.
Romeo and Juliet in there.
Lots of R&D of product fails. I remember the first time I tried a troche, I didn't know that you're supposed to dissolve in the mouth. And this is with our one with nicotine, caffeine, and CBD. Instead, I bit down on it and I got an instant headache. It's like, well, that's not how you're supposed to do this.
Maybe I should talk about midnight stabbing yourself with something. That was an interesting experience.
Hello everybody, this is Dr. Scott Sherr, the Chief Operating Officer of Troscriptions and Health Optimization Medicine and Practice.
I'm Boomer Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of Health Optimization Medicine and Practice, SNH and Troscriptions.
Many different experiences and many unique adventures that we've had, but it actually all started back in 2017. It's almost 10 years, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. 8 years ago. So Dr. Ted, he's our founder and pioneer. He started this practice in Manila now over a decade ago, maybe about 15, 17 years ago, where he created this whole framework called Health Optimization Medicine. He started talking about it more with friends, colleagues, and getting people excited about having something in the United States. So when I first met him in 2017, he was bringing this over to the United States. He didn't know how he wanted to do it, but he knew he wanted to be a nonprofit. At the time, I had 4 young kids. I think everybody was less than 7 at that point. So it was a crazy time. And I remember going to visit him in Los Angeles with a number of people when he came over from DC. We were walking down in Chinatown. You meet Dr. Ted. He's a really, really smart guy. He can do anything he wants. No matter what you say to him, he's gonna have something to say back to you. That's just what he is. That's how he does it. In a nice way, most of the time, unless he's telling you that he's picking up your IQ off the floor.
Yeah, that does happen on occasion.
We were walking through Chinatown and I asked Ted, I was like, Ted, what gets you up every morning? Why do you still do this? He's like, well, if we can move the needle on health just a little bit, then just imagine how much good we can do, right? And I think that's really what sold me on the whole program. And so in 2017, we started writing the coursework for what's now the Health Optimization Medicine and Practice Essential Certification, especially our first module, which is called metabolomics. Started getting more people involved. And it was really a decision, maybe a couple of years later, not even, that we wanted to have a for-profit company so that we could actually help people right now while they're on that longer path of optimizing their health, which you and I know takes a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the principles of health optimization medicine and practice to really set in with people, and the most diligent of people are what, 6 to 12 months?
Easy, yeah. Usually.
You do need that point in time solution for issues like focus or stress or verbal fluidity or sleep, because the average person, you tell them it's going to take 6 to 12 months for them to get 8 hours of sleep. What are they going to do?
They're going to leave, try to find somebody else that can do it faster.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so the shortcuts that we provided, that eventually became Troscriptions.
Yeah, and then the idea with the shortcuts was, we call them cheat codes. We have democratizing enlightenment, which we can talk about. But the real goal here is not to just shortchange your long-term benefit or sustainable health. It's really try to help you along that path in a very holistic and a very integrative way so that you're supporting the system, right? Dr. Ted always likes to talk about, like, if you want to have brain health, you have to have cellular health. And we always go back to that piece of it. And so it was back in 2019-ish, right before we met you, which we're going to talk about. But when we started playing around with products, playing around with ideas, Dr. Ted actually had this really great idea of making a gum. You know about this. So the gum was a nootropic gum, so a cognitive enhancement gum that had nicotine, caffeine, CBD, and methylene blue, or something like that. I don't think we actually at that point had decided on CBD yet.
Yeah, I think there's another ingredient.
We talked about L-theanine for a little while, but it's too big of you needed too much of it. And we were playing around with all this stuff. And then so we started doing some R&D. And by mid-2019, we were pretty ready to start launching this company, Troscriptions, but it wouldn't have been possible until we met this gentleman over here.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that credit. Probably too much credit to you.
No.
If we go back into my story a little bit, so 2016 was somewhat of a big year for me. I had left finance and decided at that point I wanted to actually build an app because that was what everybody was doing.
You wanted the 3 commas, right?
Yeah, join 3 Comma Club would be huge. But the idea behind what I started out initially to do was to help business travelers get access to health while on the road. Turns out that market is actually smaller than I thought. Around that time, I got diagnosed with a cardiovascular issue. This sort of threw me for a loop because according to at least how I perceived health, I was healthy. For me, health was, do I look good naked and can I follow some sort of a diet? But the problem was there was no framework. And so in late 2016, after being sort of disjointed with the information that I was getting in the world, I kind of ran out on my own path to really find out what is health. That led me to eventually starting my own podcast called Decoding Superhuman. I don't run that anymore. I recorded 200 episodes, and the reason why I did it was because, frankly, I didn't want to pay for consults all the time. And that would allow me to get access to all the best and brightest minds. And I was really trying to fix my own issues. So eventually I got to a conversation, or realized that I had not had a conversation on the podcast about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And a mutual friend of ours actually introduced us. So Scott and I started talking about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but the way you framed it was actually within the context of health optimization medicine. At that point, we really didn't have the modules that we have today in health optimization medicine. So Scott was talking about these things like the holobiont and, salutogenesis over pathogenesis. And we were really digging into health. Afterwards, you actually introduced me to Dr. Ted. And I remember Dr. Ted and I, in our first interview, we had it scheduled for 45 minutes and it lasted for 3 hours. I was glad that I had to turn the camera off because of his internet connection in Manila, because I felt like I had to go to the bathroom the entire time. But it was a really good conversation. Again, diving further into the holobiont, what that is, really left me at the end of that conversation saying, I remember distinctly, we turned off the podcast, asked him, like, how do I learn from you? We later met in London, yep, which involved a microdose of LSD. And then I eventually went to Manila, which you can think about this. This is late 2019. Dr. Ted invites me to Manila, which is crazy on his part because we've only met a couple of times.
Just once, right?
Yeah, once really in person. And he's like, hey, come spend 2 weeks with me in Manila. I don't know too many people in the world that would allow that to happen. But also I flew to Manila, which is a place that I've been to before, but hadn't spent too much time. And so over that course of the 2 weeks, I had an intensive in health optimization medicine and practice. So again, going back to what I was doing before, which was trying to figure this out myself. And I was trying to build the operating model for human performance. And then I realized that Dr. Ted had a very elegant solution, and it was a simple framework that would allow me and others to figure out how to optimize their health within the context of themselves, right? So one of the dangers that I see in the health world right now is that there's so much information. How do you know what is right for you? And this framework made it so much simpler to understand what is health. And so at Health Optimization Medicine Practice, we say health is A plus B plus C. A is absence of disease. That's traditionally how most of the world, or at least the most common definition of health, when I ask somebody, is absence of disease. That doesn't mean you're healthy.
Right.
What we also have to look at is balance between anabolic and catabolic processes in the body.
So build up and break down, right?
Yeah, in that 2 weeks in Manila, I spent a really intense amount of time. These were late night conversations, early morning clinics, trying to figure out what that meant because—
And that's really just sympathetic, parasympathetic balance, right, in the end, right?
Yeah,
So,
and then you look at the various networks of the body.
Yep.
So the ancient communication network of the body, the hormones, the more recent one, the nervous systems, which you just touched on.
Right.
And you look at balancing those. And then you look at health in the context of the life cycle of the organism, right? We want to bring everybody back to evolutionary optimal levels between the ages of 21 to 30 years old. And that all really sat just so great with me. You have this simple framework, we needed to build it out. And I kind of forced myself involved in the conversation in some ways.
I think really what it came down to, Boomer, was that you were the main person, that you had this sort of pivot point where we were able to look at this from both angles. Like we could see this nonprofit that we were developing and the significant potential it had to just shift that whole perspective from disease to health. And that's kind of what I really resonated with too, right? Growing up the son of a chiropractor, was never about disease. It was always about giving the body what it needs so that it can maintain and optimize health. So very much was like sort of this data-driven way of thinking about things, which I got really excited about. But the other piece of it was that I think what Dr. Ted sold you on, and which was very important to us, was a reciprocity model, right?
What Scott just touched on is very important. So the backdrop of everything we do is health optimization medicine and practice, and really that core perspective shift, shifting from disease to health. If you were to walk around any city in the world right now, you'd probably see a decent chunk of people in what we would call a disease state, or at least not health optimized. And what we're trying to do is to get people to say, okay, health is core to me. One of the things that I like to say, it's more of an adapted quote of Jay-Z. You can have 99 problems, but if you have a health problem, you have one problem. And so how do we make sure that health is cornerstone to everything we do? It's keystone to our living. Doing that with health optimization medicine and practice. But there's an interrelationship here. We touched on some of the mechanics of health optimization medicine and practice, balancing hormones and nutrients. That takes time. And so you needed those point in time solutions. You needed something to help you today in order to get you on the track to health optimization. We're trying to get people addicted to health. So that reciprocity model, if you think about it, we train practitioners in this framework of how to balance hormones and nutrients, but also how to optimize health. And then we have consumers or just general patients who use these products in the context of that framework. So there's a give and a take relationship. There's a balance, or if you want to go way back to Taoism and a few other things, there's yin and yang. In the midst of yin and yang is wu wei, effortless flow. Right. So there's a balance there, there's a reciprocity there, and we're continually giving and taking between the two different companies.
Yeah, and we all, Boomer, myself, Dr. Ted, all of the faculty at HOMeHOPe, we donate our time. This is our nonprofit. We donate our time as part of our real feel that we need to impact the world in a way that we can move that needle on health. And we do feel that this particular practice is a fantastic one to do and to learn. And if practitioners are interested, they can learn more at Health Optimization. Actually, our website is homehope.org. You can check it out there. And our goal really is to move that needle, and reciprocity is the way we're doing it.
Amazing. So what did we cover today? We talked a little bit about Dr. Scott here and his fateful ventures through LA's Chinatown in 2017. We talked about our 2019 trip my 2019 trip to Manila, which also involved me stabbing myself and trying to learn hormone balancing.
You gotta tell them what you mean by stabbing yourself.
Yeah, so in all fairness, just to give some background here, I flew from my parents' house in Asheville, North Carolina to Manila right after Thanksgiving. And this was, that's over a day's worth of travel. I flew through Tokyo. I remember recording podcasts in Narita Airport in Tokyo before going down to the Philippines. And I get to the Philippines, and Dr. Ted is probably the best host of anyone when you get to the Philippines. And so he gets somebody to pick me up. He waits for me in his hotel to make sure that I get my growth hormone. Now, at this time, I barely knew what growth hormone was. I thought that growth hormone was exclusive to bodybuilders, whatever. And so he handed me a syringe of growth hormone to help me with my jet lag recovery.
It's called the Mercedes stack of hormones for jet lag.
Yeah, and there's many more that gets bolted onto that. But the short of the kind of short TLDR of the story was I've never injected anything before. I've never touched steroids, anything like that. And I proceeded to kind of wind up and stab myself in the abdomen because I didn't know any better. So this is a long-running joke within the team that I have no clue. I didn't at that time had any clue to inject myself. Yeah, that was 2019, a fateful night in December.
Yeah, and then we launched Troscriptions in February 2020 and almost broke the internet in the process. So
yeah,
it's been a fun journey, and thanks for listening to a little bit of our story. We'll catch you next time.
Sayonara.